Right, now we come to the last session of the conclave, the sixth session. But before we start the session, there is another video to give us a break from different sessions. Do enjoy, and then we will start the next session.
It is said that the earth is made up of 5 different elements. And one of these is metal. So vital have metals been to man's evolution that entire eras have been named after them. Almost 4,000 years ago, with the dawn of the Iron Age, came the invention of steel. This feisty alloy soon gained popularity as it proved to be much harder and stronger than its predecessor, bronze. Today, steel is all around us. It is an essential part of our daily lives, a key component of the entire infrastructure we depend on, be it buildings, ships, railways, automobiles, machinery, home appliances, tools, or defense equipment. It was steely determination coupled with a magnanimous vision with which the SKM Group was founded in 1969 by our CMD, Shri Kirti M. Shah, who was dedicated to propel the growth of India's steel industry. Behind the name itself is a deep-rooted philosophy. S stands for service, K represents knowledge, and M signifies making a difference. These tenets have given us the impetus to grow from strength to strength, and over 4 decades, we have reinvented ourselves, diversifying to meet the industry's changing developments. Our journey may have started off supplying materials, but keeping up with industry trends. Today, we are also a leading service provider. As part of our core undertaking, we at SKM Steel combine technology and innovation to process high-quality stainless steel, hot-rolled steel, cold-rolled steel, galvanized steel, aluminium, and TMT. These are customized in various sizes, grades, and finishes to suit consumer requirements. Each of our products undergoes various stringent quality tests, right from the stage of procuring raw material till the final dispatch.
SK Metal Processor is a service partner of the Tata Steel, and it engaged in a various type of steel processing like cutting, slitting and sharing. This unit has started with the capacity of 3000 ton per month in the year 2005. Under the guidance of Tata Steel and the leadership of Sri Kirtilal Shah, we have expanded the unit with the capacity of 30,000 ton per month with modern equipments.
As part of our endeavor to achieve enhanced customer satisfaction, we at SKM offer holistic solutions. Our group portfolio includes SKM Steels, the authorized distributors of Tata Steel for HR and CRCA products, SKM Galva, the authorized distributors of Tata Steel for galvanized products, SKM Alucom, the exclusive channel for Alcoa in India, SKM Metal Processor, specializing in metal processing, and Bharat Steel Yard, which focuses on stainless steel.
we have grown from a small ferrous and non-ferrous metal supplier in 1970 to metal pioneer in today's time, and subsequently got into diversified business in the journey ranging from jewelry, textile and real estate. I can proudly announce that we have state-of-art steel processing unit at Taloja for Maharashtra region as well as at Indore for Madhya Pradesh region to provide world-class services and products.
To serve our global clientele, we also have an exclusive export division which produces some of the world's finest non-corrosive stainless steel, wire rods and billets. Our efforts have been rewarded with several prestigious awards in the past, including those for exports excellence from the Engineering Export Promotion Council of India. Behind the rising success graph of our organization is an invaluable asset, our highly skilled and dedicated team. Each of our employees is committed to delivering world-class quality and constantly strives to achieve perfection at every level.
Today, the nation's economic growth is closely linked with the demand for steel. The last 5 years have witnessed tremendous growth in the domestic and export sector. The world is increasingly looking towards India to source its products, and the day is not far when Indian steel industry will be a global sourcing hub.
India is currently the world's fourth largest producer of steel in the world, with immense potential to climb higher, backed by the resurgent economy and development of infrastructure. We at the SKM Group welcome this challenge. We have recently diversified our spectrum of services to include the manufacture of tube pipes and windmills. We have also forayed into the jewelry sector as well as the field of real estate, creating top quality infrastructure and townships. We may have crossed an annual turnover of 2,500 crore, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. Today, we stand poised to scale new heights and help steer India towards a safe, sustainable, prosperous future. The SKM Group, serving the world with steel.
So now it's the finale of the conclave. The theme of the final session is access to market for MSME sector, exploring customers in attractive segments in domestic and international markets. The session will be chaired by Mr. Sanjay Behra, Manufacturing and MSME Committee of the Bengal Chamber. He is the chairperson, and he is the Chief Sales Manager of Tata Steel. Mr. Behra, may I request you to please come on the dais. The panelists are, as I call out the names, would you please come on the dais? Mr. Amol Chitnis, CEO and MD, Reliable Autotech. Mr. Sanjay Guho-Thakurta, Partner, IBM India. Mr. Guho-Thakurta. Mr. Chetan Ligade, Director, COO, BDB Limited. Mr. Anthony Ravi Kumar, CEO, Tilaiv International LLP. I hope I have pronounced it correctly. Tilip. Okay. Mr. Sachin Shetty, Managing Partner, Questro Consulting. Mr. Behra, the final session.
A very good evening to all delegates, and thank you Bengal Chamber of Commerce for giving this opportunity to chair this important topic, which is a very always top of the mind recall with all the MSME. You see, all big manufacturing company, they have got a full-fledged marketing setup. There will be a vice president of marketing, again CMO and other things, so many sales, marketing, market research or market strategy, everything is there. But for a MSME, basically most of the times the MSME starts as a individual entrepreneur. Most of the times during my interaction, I have seen he is a technocrat, he's converted, he has worked some years, after that he has converted to a MSME or a commercial person MSME. Most of the times I found he himself does the procurement, he himself takes care of the production and also marketing as well as human resource manager, and everything is taking care of that. So sometimes because when the production or the business volume is less, it is manageable. But gradually this MSME grows a lot. And they are also one of the biggest, almost 29-30% contribution to our GDP, almost 45 to 50% contribution to our Indian exports. So the topic today is that how, because we are having a very distinguished, speakers, Mr. Amol Chitnis, who is MD CEO of Reliable Autotech, Mr. Chetan Ligade, who is Director and Chief Operating Officer of BDB, which is a leading market research company focusing on B2B and B2C, and Mr. Sachin Sethi, he is also Managing Partner for Questro. He is also their company deals in market research, and Mr. Anthony Ravi Kumar, TLIB, he also involves, basically helping the various company for developing their international market, primarily export and this thing. The question arises, many times what happens when the MSME starts his journey, mostly either he is linked to some auto major, maybe suppose one, yeah, Mr. Sanjay, please come, we're waiting for you. Yeah, Mr. Sanjay, he is also partner at IBM Consulting for Manufacturing and Technology. He is also one of the panelists. So I'm telling somebody has worked for 5-10 years in a company like Tata Motors. And after that, based on his entrepreneurial skill, he has started a company of his own. So initial stages is good. That means his single customer is Tata Motors only. So the first few years of the journey is good because he has got a fixed customer. So no need of marketing basically because he knows these persons and he is dealing this thing. When times comes and there is an aspiration with MSME to grow also. So in that case, the today topic will see how you can diversify his business, either developing to many customers in the domestic or export market or various segment, because mostly in manufacturing MSME they have got basically sheet metal fabrication, various ledger and other molding and other machinery are there, equipment machinery. So they can produce any type of product. So I will start with our panelist, Mr. Anthony Ravi Kumar. You see, he has got a good experience in export and worked in some leading company like Tata International, and also he worked as a country manager in China. Mr. Anthony, can you please help us? A company, he is a small MSME, he is a vendor to Tata Motors or Bajaj Auto, something like that. But he wants to do, he has got an aspiration to go to export. So what are the formalities in terms of country specific knowledge? What is the import tariff in the destination country? What is the documentation requirement? And also since the transaction will happen through letter of credit, so he needs to have a knowledge of UCP 600 or hedging of foreign currency. Can you please throw some light to that?
Thanks, Sanjay.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank BCC&I and also Mr. Behra and his team for giving me this opportunity. So as Sanjay said, I had some very good experience in the international market, working for Tatas for almost more than 20 years in the export segment. My suggestion will be as this. If a micro or a small industry would like to go international, I would suggest that first they should identify what is their strength or what is their core competency and how they would like to place themselves. The next step will be to make some kind of a market research. I'm not talking about a big survey and spending lakhs of rupees and all those things, but there are now a lot of platforms which gives enough data to ascertain the market. What is the market is about, what are their needs, what is the culture, what are the expectations. So one has to first understand this before entering into a segment, into a market. Then they have to kind of do a segmentation. For example, a company might think that, okay, an automotive company might think that, okay, I can supply to OEMs or I can supply to an aftermarket segment. So that has to be very clear, which segment they would like to cater. An aftermarket segment in Europe would be more demanding than an OEM segment elsewhere in a country like Africa or somewhere. So he has to be very clear in where he wants to focus and what segment he wants to address. So the next is what kind of channels that they can use to target the customers. So there are various channels available. One is, of course, there are government support, like we have the export support given by the chambers of commerce or government EPC, export promotion councils, various trade fairs that are happening both in India as well as outside, where we have ACMA or CII. They give a platform for small companies because you don't need to put up a big stall or anything, so you can even participate. And there are a lot of delegations, different, like say for example, Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, and so many kinds of platforms are available for us, for the enterprise to see what kind of customers are available, which are the names, which are the companies they can target and work with them. There are also various kind of channel partners or networking. For example, we ourselves, like Steelium International LLP, we ourselves, we are doing kind of a manufacturing guild where small companies which are having very good technology, very good process, but they have been not able to reach out to the customers. So we help them as our own company. So it will be like our own company. We promote them into the international market. The advantage is we also have a cluster or a group of companies. One is like say for example forging, casting, sheet metal. So the customer also finds advantage because we give a basket of products to them. So that's how we also promote these people in the international market. Not only that, we handhold them. We kind of give them support in terms of what kind of quality levels, the audits we make and set them right. We give them packaging support. Also, when we are kind of doing kind of an engagement with the customer, we try to make the legal or the agreements properly made so that there is no issues later, there's no surprises later. So these are the kind of things which we do, which I think many such companies will be doing like us. So use these channels to kind of go and approach the customers. That's one. The second point is, I think I should touch upon the kind of quality and the packaging requirements. Quality, of course, is taken for granted in many countries now. So quality is a given thing, so they don't compromise on it. Of course, pricing, you have to be very careful. We have experiences where very enthusiastically the companies make a pricing just to attract the customer, but later they find that, okay, there's something wrong, and then they go for a revision price that's totally not done with. Or the other hand, if suppose companies like wanted to keep some negotiation margin, so they give some, for example, 25-30% margin, and then the customer comes back and negotiate, then they give, okay, I'll give 20%, many of the European countries don't like this method of operation because they say, okay, 5%, 3% difference, they will accept. But if you are no very a large difference and then you are trying to come down, suddenly drop it down, it's not going to happen. So we have to be very careful about the pricing that we are making. About the packaging, it depends on what kind of mode of transport. Packaging is very, very important as we do our product itself. We might make a very good product, but ultimately the product reaches the customer in a damaged condition or it's not fit to use, all our efforts will be wasted. So we need to be very careful in designing the packaging. In fact, we also help the enterprises that are associated in terms of that. And then finally, the risk mitigation, there are various ways. One is the product related risk, then you have the logistics related risk, then you have the financial related risk. So the product related risk, when one has to go to developed countries like Europe or US, you need to be very careful. There is a product liability and recall issues are there. So we need to take proper insurance cover. A lot of insurance companies provide this cover. And then coming to the logistics related, we need to take marine insurance end to end, warehouse to warehouse. And then when it comes to financial risk, one is hedging because you know the currencies are fluctuating heavily. So you might have calculated the pricing at a certain X amount of exchange rate, but when you actually ship the goods and when you're realizing the money, so it will be probably it would have dropped. If it is on the higher side, fine, you will gain it. So there are other risks involved, like you give a credit to the customer, but it doesn't realize. So you need to take a export credit guarantee. Like you know, there are government company like EPCG, export promotion guarantee corporation, which gives insurance. There are private company like Tata AG and others who provide this, and banks. So many people give this kind of, United India gives. So you can take that so that your money is assured. So these are the things which I would like to touch upon.
Thank you, very insightful information. Mr. Chetan Ligade, you see you are your company is a leading market research company in B2B and B2C sectors. In many cases, the MSME are developed under a single major vendor, which I have already, and sometimes growth is a challenge because their growth is dependent on their customer because it is only one customer. So there is a risk associated with that. And also how the growth becomes a challenge to diversify to other customer and how market research will help them considering low budget because MSME sector, they cannot spend too much like big corporates, they spend on market research. Can you help us with some of the insights?
Yes. Once again, thank you very much for this opportunity and giving us this chance to interact with the lovely audience. I think I'll start with a fundamental premise that every organization.
Can you please hold the mic?
Yeah. Every organization, whether it is an MSME or a mid-sized organization or a growing organization, I think should see itself as a company which would like to create value over a period of time and to be able to sustain that value over a period of time. So when I say create value, I'm talking about your return on investment should be more than your cost of capital. You know, I mean, that is the fundamental premise that we see most companies have to work on. And once we do that, we have to also see how we can consistently do that in the near and the farther future as well. So in the near future, you know, as a MSME owner, the role is more an operational person, you know, wherein over a period of time, I think he has to move from an operational excellence focused person to I would say a capital allocator, you know. Now, when we say capital allocator, what I'm trying to say here is you need to allocate capital to make sure that your growth is consistently above your industry standard, you know. Now that can come from creating economies of scale, right? Now, when you have to look at creating economies of scale, you would like to make sure that you would need to turn your investments as many times as possible. So you need to have visibility from my existing core customers. What is it that I'm addressing, and what is it that I'm today not addressing? So, so that's the first question to ask. The second question to ask is, if I go after the other companies, can I do it profitably? Because doing it just for the sake of getting business, I think leads a lot of companies into a vicious cycle where they are putting in a lot of money, but the returns are not able to sustain. So, over a period of time, it kind of becomes a value destructor. So, in that case, market research comes in as a very handy tool to create first a market map. So, a market map basically, in simple terms, will give you a matrix of the industry size and the profit pools that are there in that the value that you are looking at. So it is very important to see whether I am targeting an industry which needs lower investment, but at the same time I can target a larger profit pool. Now this matrix can be developed by having a systematic analysis of the market, which I understand MSMEs do not want to spend a lot of money, but they need to first realize that they need this data. Because many of the MSMEs I come across, they have this feel that, no, I know everything. There's nothing that I don't know about this market. I've been in this many years. So that realization is important, and then you identify sectors where you can leverage economies of scale, technology, and the branding to be able to generate that return which is more than your cost of capital. I think this is, in that case, the market map, profit pool analysis, as well as the analysis around the what we call it as typically, the top 10 customers in each sector, as simple as that. So if you look at, let's say, today you are a ICE component supplier, do you want to look at medical devices? You need to first of all have the clarity, medical devices in India means what? Because there are the Siemenses, the Philips, who may not have a lot of domestic manufacturing, but yes, there are maybe opportunities hidden in, let's say, the implants manufacturing, the low-end implants manufacturing. So you need to know who are those 10 customers I can cater to, so that I can have a mix of customers who, at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we are creating value over a period of time. And when we are creating that value, it is not because the industry is growing. It is because we are taking steps in building economies of scale, in building a technology diversification, because a lot of companies now talk about seeding new ideas. So that's something, a synergetic opportunities that we need to look at. And finally, branding. B2B businesses, branding happens in a very different way. I see that some of the examples could be, look at industry platforms where you go and make a presentation, look at import data, and then see what is it that you can target from that import data, which is again capturing the profit pool, not just doing the business just for the sake of it. So these are all the steps I think we should you can take to make sure that the journey is towards value creation. That's what I would like to.
Thank you so much for a very useful information which may be helpful to all our MSME friends. And Mr. Sachin Sethi, you have spent a good amount of time in market research. Now you are owner of the company, and you have engaged in metals mining sector with almost all companies. I have also got the opportunity to work with and also got the opportunity to work with you for developing a marquee brand like Tata Astrom, which completed 10 years this year, from a 200 crores to 15,000 crores. So your contribution is there. I am acknowledging the in open forum, because how we used to go and visit the customer, the trade union, I think initially 2008-9. Yes. Now it has become a 15,000 crore company. 15,000 crore B2B brand. I think it is bigger than any HUL brands now. So it is a matter of pride for Tata Steel. So what is your view on whether MSME should focus only on domestic market or diversify to export market also?
Sanjay, first of all, I think I didn't know the number. I knew you were doing very well. Astrum per se is synonymous with the primary product meant for the SMEs, right?
Yeah.
Until you introduced Astrum, they were pushed all the secondaries, SPOs, arises as the material, right? You did take an effort to distinguish that and said they also deserve certified material meant for the component that they manufacture. So, but yeah, I mean, commendable that it is now a 15,000 crore brand. Well, I would be shooting myself if I choose a side between the domestic versus export. And as I stand, we are SMEs today contribute nearly 40% of India's export. So there is a bigger revenue that is extracted, out of the export. So we shouldn't be taking a side, either domestic or export, but it has to be a mix of both. Now, I will give you two perspectives. One, when we look at from the macro perspectives, we are a 3.2 trillion economy. We are going to be 5.5 to 6 trillion by 27. What we are talking about is probably creating another Reliance, another Tatas, another Birlas, right? So there is immense opportunity for a lot of MSMEs, SMEs to be the bigger players in the future, right? And this can happen when we look at not just either of the market, but both. We have, if you look at the Indian perspective, India today stands in terms of the overall MSME contribution to GDP in the manufacturing at the range of 10 to 12%. There is humongous opportunity to drive that up. Services is a bigger contributor. There are obviously challenges, but I'm sure the other panels are going to contribute to that. But I'm sticking to the question that you put across to me. We have a huge potential to tap into the domestic market. For example, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Obviously, the MSME sector today in India is very ancillarized, very fragmented, and then they are all local economic specific, right? Very few. So if the MSME contribution to export is at 40%, definitely it is not coming in from those 6 crore MSMEs. It is coming from probably a 5% of that universe of the companies, right? So then what we are looking at is really 95% of them are probably just surviving in your earlier question of serving one customer as being an ancillary, or just catering to the local economic requirements, probably through handicrafts, etc., or a cast component, to so on. There is huge opportunity for the companies to look at, to diversify, to look at newer product, to even to get into the newer geographies, probably from a local economic clusters to get into the bigger towns and the cities to start with, right? And then cater to the requirements. Look at the way the things are changing. Simply put, the construction. There are 3 or 4 key mega trends that we see, and I'm sure you're also spotting the same. The way in which the energy sector, the automobile sector, or the transport sector, or the construction sector that is going to evolve. Construction practices which were in situ earlier are now moving to the offsite, probably through a prefab structures. Simply put, you can have a yard next to a large construction site and then supply prefab panels to that building. You don't need bigger this one to go out and look at export only to create bigger revenues or additional revenues. You can start with that. Look at the export. Now, that's on the domestic perspective. We should be looking at export because export is a larger market. Export teaches or enables us to acquire a fewer skills, acquire appreciation for quality, enables us to develop economies of scale, enables us to create a brand recognition, not just in the domestic market, but also the global market. So the learnings are numerous, learnings are immense, which we can juxtapose for the domestic market and the customers that we serve. So I would say a balanced view. Look at where you stand today, your current position. Look at if there is a bandwidth available. The bigger issue that concerns the MSME and SME sector is the bandwidth of the promoter, right? So as we evolve from the startup stage to the maturity stage, obviously the challenges that move from or a shift from probably finding the right capital at the right cost to getting the right talent, right? So your bandwidth is split. Now, how do you manage that? So do you have enough bandwidth to look at driving the adjacencies, exploring adjacencies is all that you need to look at and to explore whether you are better suited to serve the domestic market or the export markets.
Thank you, Sachin. I also fully agree because you see, uh, one is that market diversification is the key because one company should not be focused 100% domestic because the COVID has taught us. I'm sharing my own experience when COVID first wave was there, all factories were closed. At that time, Tata Steel survival was based on exports only. So export has to be there. If 15-20% something like that, it helps you to build a competitive edge because you are competing in the global field with global players. Maybe country specific competition, customer specific, your competition, and also it improves the quality maturity. When you want to export to Europe or US, a developed economy, they have got stringent quality norms and it will help your to build your internal system process, and also you are earning foreign exchange, which is also a good thing because and government through engineering export promotion council, they are also encouraging this thing. The good thing, I also agree completely with you, there has to be a as part of risk mitigation, domestic and export has to be there for MSME. They should look beyond the near boundary. Suppose somebody is sitting in Pune supplying to only Tata Motor, they should also explore who are the competitor of Tata Motor in the global field and develop their product and services, and it will build the what we call maturity level as an organization. Thank you so much. And Mr. Sanjay, you are dealing with big corporates as part of manufacturing consultancy practice in IBM with both domestic and international level. Can you please share the expectation of big manufacturers while sourcing their products from MSME? Is there when they source from MSME versus vis-a-vis when they source from other companies? Can you throw some light to that?
Sure. Thank you. It's a great question, Mr. Behra. Talking about the global companies, I think the standards of expectation in terms of quality, etc., is very stringent. We already discussed that. Now, the role of Indian MSMEs, if we have to say, we need to scale them up to a certain level that they meet the expectations of those standards, whether it is US or UK or European markets. I have not seen much difference in terms of baselining of standards when it comes to European MSMEs or European large manufacturers. It's more or less the same because when it comes to a final product, it is more or less uniform. Now, at the global level, the MSMEs, how they operate in an ecosystem around the large manufacturers, and I'm sure we are also following a similar model in India. And I also believe that for our MSMEs to scale up to a global level, we also have to follow a similar exercise, that is probably work around the mentorship of large enterprises like Tata Steel and JSWs, etc., who operate in large scale in India. So when I'm referring to mentorship, I'm not referring to sourcing, etc., but when the Tata Steels of the world operate at a domestic level or a international level, there is a certain benchmark that they set. Now, it is very important for Indian MSMEs to also adhere to that benchmarking. Otherwise, we are not following a certain standard. And if we are not following a certain standard at the domestic level, then we cannot scale it up at the international level, and then we fall short. That uniformity has to be there all across.
Thank you so much. And we have with us Mr. Amal Chitnis, and there is really a story to tell about him because he has founded Reliable Autotech with his few friends, some 30 years ago as a startup. Now it is a 500 crore company and a leading name and very goodwill factor with your customer, you are like John Deere, Mahindra and defense sector also. And he is a source of inspiration. Let us have a big round of applause for Mr. Amal Chitnis. So my question to Mr. Chitnis, can you please, because share your journey and the challenges faced by you and how you have overcome over the period to reach to such scale. And also I believe your 35 to 40% of your products goes for exports. So you have got a vision, means why I'll be located only with Pune customer. Why I cannot do? So how you have overcome? How I started? If you share a little bit about that, it might be a source of inspiration of the audience. Many are MSME here.
Thank you, Mr. Behra, for your nice introduction. I'm really honored to be here, and I thank the organizers of this event for giving this opportunity to me. Uh, I will be sharing reliable journey, and I may sound little bit primitive and basic, but I think this is what I can be, and I will share according to the from my journey from say 1985. So reliable as a three partners partnership. We started way back in 1985 as a very small company. It's a very tiny company, or you can even call it as a garage. Okay, the initial investment was only 4 lakh rupees, and the plot of land we bought in Nasik was worth around 18,000 rupees. So we kind of we are first generation businessmen, so we kind of accumulated money from right from our stipends, because we were engineers and we were working in limited companies for some time, and then we had enough money to buy a plot and then do some small project, and then now currently we are say around 500 crore company with 35% export, and going on to 1,000 crore company in a very short time, with the proposal to take our exports to something like 50%. So the journey, I'm going to kind of share some of the hurdles, some of the issues we faced, and how we overcame those issues in due course of time. To start with, actually, as I told you, actually we had a limited seed capital, because we were first generation businessmen, and the solution we actually kind of had for this issue was go for multiple loans. Okay, and even the nationalized banks were not giving funding to a small scale industry. We had an organization called Maharashtra Industrial Development and Finance Corporation. So they sound kind enough to give something like 50,000 or 1 lakh rupees loan to Reliable. The rest of the money was raised by 3 partners, and we started a first venture which was something like 4 lakh rupees of investment. Then in the journey, actually, while acquiring customer and then other activities, we had many issues, but some of the issues I can mention. First issue was actually pricing with customers. So small scale, when we approach a big customer, big OEM, actually, the expectations of pricing was really very tight. So we kind of had this question: are we really doing a correct thing, being in the business, or have we made a mistake? So, but see, actually, your training, your journey starts really there, because if you are good at costing, if you are good at pricing, then you can say no to the customer, and then finally, if you are worth it, then customer will still give the order. So this is what we kind of overcame over a period of time. Getting good people was an issue. Doing contracts was an issue. Doing labor agreements was an issue. But this is what we kind of learned the hard way. We appointed consultants time and again, and used the expertise of consultants to, whenever the expertise was not there in the Reliable. And one more thing I want to mention here, actually, basically, this is what a common mistake some of the entrepreneurs do. You can get consultants for everything, but the strategy is your baby. So what we 3 partners were good at was really deciding the strategy. And we had a very fierce discussion over a period of time. We discussed strategy at lengths, and the strategic thinking is what has brought Reliable to this level over the last 35 years of journey. Mr. Bera asked me to even talk about the export business and what really can build a good export business. We are something like 35%, meaning around 200 crores of export. Actually, we will be going to something like 500 crores of export in next 3-4 years. Export, I can share that for export, I'm talking about manufacturing point of view, because I can talk about manufacturing only. I don't know anything about services or any other businesses. You need to really build a very robust manufacturing process. Okay, for domestic, some here and there will do, but for export, the manufacturing has to be robust. Second thing which I have kind of experienced over a period of last 35 years, not 20 years of my exporting experience, 22 years of experience, is visiting customer is prime importance. I have personally gone to USA for a single meeting, but actually that single meeting and your intention to really show up at very critical meetings and critical interaction with customer really can win your business. This is very important. People think that actually मैं तो जा रहा हूँ उधर and I'm going to kind of attend only one meeting, but that one meeting and that message to the customer that actually you are important and I'm coming here for one meeting is very important. Third thing, actually, what Reliable has done over a period of time, especially for export, is give an end-to-end solution. Because exporting customers do not want only components or do not want only services, they want the solution. Because most of the time I have seen actually the buyers, the customer buyers are even not non-technical. So they don't know much about even technical things also. If you start discussing few technical details with them, then they will say, I don't know. You will have to kind of meet our engineering. So if you give an end-to-end solution, then that is a very sure shot of way of kind of winning the export business. Another thing, actually, I'm assuming few things, but actually, as an Indian, I'm including that, but we need to be more truthful to the customer, actually. The more truthful you are, especially in the advanced economies, if you are more truthful, then actually the trust builds up and you get more business. And some of my panelists discussed some of the advantages of developing export business. I'm here to add few more points here. First of all, very frankly, better margins. So if you are doing a domestic business and similar export business, then you are likely to get a better margin. I cannot give many numbers, but actually can at least 5 to 10% better margins. You can definitely appreciate this thing. Then I think one of the panelists mentioned the appreciation of your quality and genuine effort. That this is also one big takeaway, because actually it kind of improves the morale of the organization. If you are your quality is appreciated, if you are getting customer letters, then that's a morale booster for you, and then people work with more enthusiasm because of this. Then the exporting customers, or rather the receiving customers, overseas customers, award you business based on your quality and delivery performances always. So that is one thing that actually you can very easily win a good business if you are quality conscious, your PPM level is low, your delivery PPM is low, then that's the thing to go, and then you will be kind of awarded. And then when you establish trust with exporting rather overseas customer, then the pricing hassles are not there compared to the Indian customer base. So when they trust you, actually they kind of very without much thinking, actually if they have the saving, then they give the order. We do not go to pricing hassle. Okay, the third thing which Mr. Behraj asked me about is developing segments. Okay, so this is my advice. Now, this thing, because Reliable has entered into many segments of late, but this is the way we are gone. First, you need to establish yourself in one segment. Okay, you have to be master of that segment to really start with. Okay, And Reliable started with auto component, and then the adjacent segment was tractor and earth moving components. So these are the segments we kind of mastered in India and abroad. But going into adjacent segment, and which is the segment which you have already mastered, is a very good strategy. Okay. I can share you one more example of Reliable, actually very interesting example. See, we started our company as a press shop, okay? So the press shop was the beginning. Then we started getting inquiries for fabricated item, the welded assembly. So we kind of entered fabrication. At the same time, we realized that actually the dies we are getting made from our suppliers are of not that quality and definitely of not that international quality. So we kind of did a backward integration into die shop, okay, and that has been a very key success factor in our success for last 20 years, nearly 15 years, because the die shop we started in 2007. So that was again a very strategic decision of entering into die manufacturing for our own use first, and then we also sell dies to the independent customers. So it's a profit center also. And then looking at our capabilities of pressing, welding, absorbing technology, reading, engineering, drawings, and everything else, we decided that actually defense is a very good sector to be in for a company like Reliable, because we had everything. So the culmination of our efforts for last 30 years odd, because defense we have entered very lately, some 3 years back, but we are getting excellent response from our customer base in defense also. And the key success factor is our expertise in our other domains, where we have fabrication, machinery, stamping, technology, engineering skills, everything. So actually, this is how we can progress. Actually, getting master of one domain, one segment, and then getting into other domains and other segments. Okay. And some of the questions Mr. Behra asked me to really answer was, how do you kind of face the competition from China? Now, the simple answer is be niche, okay? Because China, their exports is so big, their export to US and European countries is so big that we should not be competing with on a volume basis at all. This is my takeaway, because even if you remain niche, and now niche meaning, suppose if you are in a heavy commercial vehicle, the volumes are say 50,000 to 100,000. Now, these volumes are not attractive for probably many Chinese manufacturers, but they are attractive for you. So, if you get into some kind of niche, okay, now that niche definition is your own, but if you remain in niche, then you will get less competition. But another thing is actually in engineering skill, I see many companies, and I think Pune is you can say the automation hub of India. So many companies are in technology, many companies are in engineering products and services. So make use of those, and you can possibly beat not only China but even all other third world countries, and you can win business against them. So this is what, if you start competing in the volume game, then probably you will lose to China. This is my takeaway, my advice. So be in the niche, be in the medium volume and not the very high volume business.
Thank you, Mr. Chitnis. Very insightful. If I can take 3-4 points from that, yeah, as per him, the real key success factor are quality, cost, delivery, and new thing I will learn trust. Generally, in automotive, we call QCDD, quality, cost, delivery, development. But it's a new thing. This is eye opener for us. Trust. Trust is a factor. I mean, customer, buys from you because he has got a trust with you. And also one more thing, you have very clearly elucidated, like you should have a strategy. You have got 4 founders, so each has got some complementary skill. So you form a strategy And also good thing, happy to hear that your strategy is go from 500 CR to 100,000 CR in the next 2-3 years. So that is a congratulations to you and best of luck for that. And one more thing, very good, insightful information you are given. Don't try everything. I mean, like, actually, you focus on the niche market because you don't because you are MSME. So Chinese MSME are bigger. So don't think if I'll produce big quantity, then I'll be more competitive and this thing. You focus on niche segment, just like defense. Very this thing because Honorable Prime Minister is giving focus on the Make in India. Why defense is the one of the biggest imported budget? Why it cannot be produced in India for our Indian defense? That is a very good sector. Thank you so much for this all this good information. And Mr. Sanjay, just I'm telling, he just many MSME they plan, just like 500 crore to 1,000 crore in 2-3 years. But I feel, strategy is a matter of leadership. One is that aspiration, other is how to execute that. It is one wishful thinking definitely to have a bigger turnover, and simultaneously there has to be a sustainable business. It should make profit and all these things because many companies they run for only revenue, but sustainability has to be there because business has to be sustainable, make profit and all these things. So what is your view on that? What MSME should implement a strategy for the growth and how it will help them for a sustainable business?
Thank you. I believe that it is very important to identify the market segment quite correctly. There are many areas that you can play around with, but if I sitting in 2023 and looking at the next 10 years, and India is definitely going to be the leader in the manufacturing over the next decade. I think there are 3 segments that come to my mind sitting where we are right now. Firstly, automobile sector. I'm identifying the sectors because I believe that we should be strongly going for these particular sectors, and they have immense growth potential over the next few years. Firstly, automobile, especially the focus on EVs. I think we are all aware of what is happening in the EV market in Indian space. Almost every automobile company is coming up with that. And with the spurge in that particular sector, the entire ecosystem around of the ancillaries is actually shaping up. It is not yet there. So there is a big vacuum as far as MSMEs are concerned. Especially if we are talking about people who are still hesitant to go for EV cars. One primary reason is that there is a lack of charging stations and so on. So that is another area that need to be tapped into, looked into, because right now I think Tata Power is the leading company who is the player in that particular segment, but we do not see too many companies playing in that space. Second area which is sweeping across the entire world is sustainability. EV does touch upon sustainability, but there is even more. Coming back to steel manufacturing, I think the green hydrogen is one particular area that India is focusing a lot. I am aware that India is even importing green hydrogen from Australia and many other such countries. Now, there is immense opportunity to play around in this particular space because not too many players, forget India, across the globe, there are not too many players right now who is active in this particular space. So I see this particular space as a strong area. And thirdly, there's a third area which is not exactly linked to manufacturing, but we are all aware of what is happening in the lithium space. With the discovery of large amounts of lithium deposit in Jammu Kashmir last month, and India is emerged as the largest depositor of lithium, but yet there is no concrete plan, there's concrete strategy about how to go around this thing. There's logistics issues and all that, but definitely it has emerged as an area where a lot of MSMEs can be active in bringing in a lot of modern tools. For example, modern mining methods taking from different European organizations like Sandvik, how we can be very fast, how we can bring acceleration in that particular space. So these three segments comes directly to my mind, where we can easily identify and accelerate our journey when it comes to the MSMEs. Apart from that, we already have the manufacturing space quite active. I already spoke about benchmarking of qualities and other points.
And thank you so much. And Mr. Anthony Ravi Kumar, you have touched upon, just I am giving a hypothetical scenario, just like one MSME who has got market 100% domestic, and he wants to develop a knowledge on export, and he wants to develop a product and also expand his market, a country like Europe or Africa. So in this context, which are the agency they can take help for the above, and what are their go-to-market strategy to enter that export market, and whether they should work through some representative based in those country or open their own office. What is your thought about this?
Yeah, Sanjay, I would suggest the MSME, or I mean the enterprise need to work on basically 7 P's, I would call. One is the product, the place, the price, then the promotion, then the people, process, and the physical evidence. Physical evidence is something like how you show to the customer your service or your product, the physical evidence of that. So once these are in place, I think the enterprise themselves can expand in the domain where they want to grow. So because there is a reputation which is built, the customers, for example, I would give example of when in 90s, I think the same time when Mr. Chitnis has started his journey, I have seen, because I was in Tata International and I was heading the auto components, I have seen small companies started with small shared and small investment, but today they are very large corporations, large companies. Why? Because all these approaches they have done, and once they enter into certain segments, certain customers, there are a lot of positive referrals. Like for example, a company which was supplying to Cummins in India, they were doing a good job. So today they are supplying globally to all the Cummins factories. So that's the kind of reputation they have built because of their all these things which I talked about, 7 P's. So I think you don't need a representative office or a salesperson sitting there. If needed, yes, of course, to address day-to-day problems or day-to-day interaction. Probably if the company has grown to that extent, yes, fine. Otherwise, I think it's not mandatory. Now there are a lot of channels, like we communicate on this. COVID has brought in a lot of working methodology where you can communicate sitting at home to the customers. You have like Teams or Zoom or whatever. So you can physically see virtually see the customer and interact on the designs, the drawings, everything. You don't need to be physically present. Of course, as Mr. Chitnis said, in order to make a relationship, to have a face-to-face kind of a bonding or give that comfort to the customer, yes, you need to visit. But for day-to-day working, I don't think so. You need to have this kind of an office, or those days I think have gone. Coming to what else you asked?
What are the agencies like you?
Yeah.
You
So some of the
gave
agencies.
some reference like this Indian embassy.
Yeah. So there are so
like
many,
that.
so many channels, so many missions are available where you can utilize them for expanding your business. That's it, I think.
Yeah, thank you. And Mr. Chetan Ligade, you see in domestic, how can the MSME do networking with big corporates for carrying out trial, commercialization, regular business? I think small MSME, he knows L&T or Tata Steel is a big company, but he is not having confidence to approach that. Even they will also approach the big corporate, may not entertain so easily because they are already having established, a vendor base. Why they will develop a new vendor? So, as per you, that what should they do for networking, developing the customer with the big corporates and many things in domestic as well as in export market? What is your view on this?
Right, right. So I think I will look at it in two aspects. One is something which is more regular in nature, that you identify the organization. I believe that you need to create a single person within that organization whom you can call a friend. Because typically these organizations are quite large and multi-layered and a lot of processes. So they, as a mid-sized organization, you need a friend within that organization who can take you around. So that is something which we need to identify. That I have seen these kind of relationships can be built through exhibitions. These are very good forum. I am myself an MSME, and I'm glad to say that majority of my business is generated through my visits to exhibitions. So you go to an exhibition, where else will you find an MD of a 500 crore company sitting and there? You can just walk into his cabin and then meet him straight away, right? So you need to have a strong pitch and then create that one entity within that large organization who can take you around in that organization. So there are multiple business divisions, there are multiple, you cannot straight away go to the managing director of an organization. So you need to say, okay, who is the guy who is nearest to my competency, and then try to follow him. Now LinkedIn kind of helps you do that very easily. So that's one way of doing it, which I think most of us understand that. I mean, that's something which I don't think so is rocket science. But another way of doing that, as Sir mentioned, was to be a solution provider. Because we have been working with companies, mid-sized companies, who were doing packaging solutions, let's say, for a lot of run-of-the-mill segments, I would say. But through sheer focus and through sheer effort, they identified that here is a segment that Asian Paints as an organization is very large. So how do I convert the tin dabba into a plastic dabba? That is something which you need to kind of build your competency around it and then show the customer that, look, here is a solution which actually is good for you. It could be, I have seen companies who can, as we rightly said, to be a solution provider. I think that is something which will be very, very critical in identifying areas which you can focus on and then penetrate an organization. Once you get into the organization, yes, you have multiple ways of going lateral, going vertical, multiple areas that you can look at. Another very important device that which you can use is today, I think, the customer journey mapping. That is something which I think MSMEs should use that as a tool to get into organizations. So it may not be the senior most person. You may start with a commercial head. You may start with the purchase head. And you start building that relationship from there on by trying to understand what are his pain points, who are his current vendors, and if you're going to do the same thing again, if you're going to replace the same vendor with a lower cost, then you are going the wrong way. So that's not the thought process. The thought process is, look, here is a process. How can I add value, so that the customer benefits from it. So that, I think, key account management, to be able to have confidence in your organization, and then of course I don't think that there is anything wrong in gate crashing and then meeting people. And I see a lot of hesitancy, especially in the front level sales guys. I think that can be also, a lot of training can be built into those aspects as well. So these are some of the areas which I think can be looked at, but the most effective could be to go in as a solution provider. So this is what I can do for you, and this will help you kind of improve your margins or make your life easier. So that works very well.
And a very good point. Also, what do you think? What is the role of government in facilitation of this thing for a MSME and big corporates? Yeah, any chamber of commerce like Bengal Chamber of Commerce, suppose some seminar where typically when you want to enter a big corporate, they have got a vendor development cell.
Right.
So some procurement manager, some introductory interaction type, you can some mailer type, you can say, yeah, government facilitation role. What is your view on that?
I believe creating a platform for your government can basically support organizations by helping them create a platform. But government will listen to you only when you have a not as you go as a single person, but you need to go there as an association, right? If you look at the success stories, not just in India, if you look at, let's say, the German mid-segment companies, the German Mittelstand that's called, they're very successful, right? So they have been able to, most companies, German companies that you look at are family-owned companies, and they are the best in the world when it comes to each of their technologies. And this has happened not by, so they go through, let's say, an association like IGCC, the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, who do a lot of initiatives to help their member companies access markets, bring political consensus on nudging the government to take certain actions, so that they create certain standards and specifications of which helps their member companies. All these things can be done, but provided, as I said, it has to be done through a platform. Only then the government will kind of listen to you. Otherwise, some success stories I can think of is, let's say, TAGMA, or let's say ACMA, these are all have got a tremendous amount of support from the government in terms of, let's say, technology centers, databases, industry reports. Another fine example could be the Indian Machine Tool Manufacturers Association. So the kind of work that they do with their member companies in terms of training, in terms of bringing SEZs, all these things through government initiative, but that's possible only when you are powerful enough to be heard. That's something I think we need to underline there.
So the key takeaway for me from this, your view, is that any MSME, he should be part of some industry association to collaborate each other. He may be his competitor, but the regular common issues can be raised to the government, any other forum where it can be resolved and it can be heard, because single MSME cannot do. Thank you so much. Yeah, Sachin, you see what problem MSME face to attract and retain talents to compete in the market. As their production, sometimes our product they produce, it competes with big customer, big organization also, small organization also. What is your view on that? How they can retain and attract talent? Because unlike big corporations, big organizations, they don't have the bandwidth. What is your view on this?
Sanjay, I touched upon briefly in my previous remarks. So you have to understand the life cycle of the startup. So you can bucket it under 3 stages. The first one is the startup stage, growth stage, and then the maturity stage. So usually the MSME, the way I see it is, starts with an entrepreneur or a couple of friends starting with the idea of a service or a product. It's a single product, and their energy, bandwidth, everything goes in creating that and converting that into a profitable business. So in the whole scheme of things, they obviously they would have found a customer, work with the customer. So it's a single product, single customer. You want to grow, go into the next orbit, then you need capital. So the challenges move from the product operation to the capital. And in the whole process, you see the promoter or the founders are only involved, right? And they are moving on to do the next stage of growth, which is, let's say, either diversification or a new product, again associated with that product. And you have the human capital of the founder promoters are only leveraged. Now that's a problem, okay? Problem are many for the MSMEs, SMEs present across the country. The reason being, if you are in a place like Pune and you are focusing on single product and the founders, promoters involved, you are not going to attract any talent here. Unless you find options to delegate, you can retain a talent only when he is rewarded, only when he is motivated, only when he is let's say, compensated for his skills that he brings in. There are numerous opportunities, not just in India but overseas. They are, you know, free to probably acquire a position elsewhere. So for us as an SME, MSME, it is important to, one, understand that the talent can be retained and groomed only when we relegate certain responsibilities. So that's important. The nature of the presence of these SMEs, let's say for example, we have, I don't know what the percentage, but in the bigger cities, there are only few companies that operate. It's all, as I said, ancillarized, all local economy-led MSME, SMEs. Acquiring talent in those pockets to work at a probably a compensation, you know, at a abysmally low level than the big corporates or their own peers in the other bigger cities is another major challenge. You can't extract talent, though there are educational institutes that go deeper into the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. Their aspiration is to go and work for a larger conglomerate, right? Get the best. I mean, you know, obviously the education system, the policies needs to be intervened there. For example, Chetan talked about German. If you actually look at the German way in which the SME, MSMEs are groomed, there are policies from the government where they set up, you know, vocational training institutions. And if I understand, nearly 88% of the trainees are absorbed by the MSMEs and the SMEs. It's not the corporates. So we need to absorb, perhaps create a scenario where we can attract talent, not just from the, you know, top tier schools, but also at the colleges at the local levels, would be the primary step to initiate that kind of a switch. The second is on innovation. We don't want to just go do a run-of-the-mill product being an ancillary unit. Obviously your talent is not going to stay with you, right? So there has to be a challenging environment for them to create something new. So there comes the idea of looking at a newer product, getting into a different market, being innovative in offering a newer solutions to the customer. So that aspect. So these are some of the things that I would touch upon. So this is definitely going to be a bigger challenge. I mean, you know, that retaining a talent, and I have been doing a bit of work, not just in India, but some of the other markets in the area of MSME, SME growth. And I find that larger chunk of the challenges after the startup stage shift from fundraising to more on the human capital, right? It's the bigger challenge. If you don't have the right set of capital, you may have a greater product, you may have a greater solution, but you may not have the right people to take it to the right customers. You know, so thereby, probably that whole process could be detrimental. As the statistics show, with every new product that you launch, your profit margins go up by about 8 to 10%, right? And you know that we are an ancillary industry. The profit margin to a large extent driven by or guided by the principle that we work. So getting out of that orbit to another product makes more sense in terms of increasing your profitability, but you need the right set of a talent. Now, getting the right talent would come up at a cost which the MSMEs and MSMEs are prepared to do, which is delegating, involving them in decision making, creating an environment that is more innovation led, right? You know, absorb newer perspectives and not just the founder promoters who make the decisions. So on and so forth, Sanjay, to be able to give you a very crisp response to that.
Thank you. But even though MSME cannot attract good talent, I found the e-commerce startup. They are also, when they are starting up, it is MSME only.
Correct.
Whereas they are able to attract the best talent. They are in day zero in IIT or IIM. So what is your view on this?
Well, I think if we look at the traditional MSME, SME and then new age MSME, no comparison, for the very fact that I think the traditional one starts with the idea of the product, with, like sir mentioning, putting his own capital or collecting it from friends and trying of developing a prototype and then going to a customer for the potential sales. But here we first get the funds and then we try and spend that funds through acquisition of the talent and then showcasing it, you know, either in the form of a GMV, etc., but not necessarily looking at the profitability aspect. So there are two different buckets. Of course, it's necessary. If you ask me, it's obviously And I think the new age economies are, created and grown in on those platforms. So it's important. And yeah, I mean, I think if you are going to relate and suggest that should the MSME SME sort of follow that, I mean, why not? The capital access to capital is now are far more easier than before. If you have a greater idea and you need, you can actually go to, at a local level, you have the microfinancing companies who can perhaps lend with a shorter time, with the shorter scrutiny, and then you can access that capital to, sort of expand, right? And that expansion could come in the form of not just about revenues, but also human capital. I mean, I would put for SME, MSME going forward, I think the important aspect is to get the right set of people. If at all you are aspiring to grow out onto a different orbit, if you are going to continue with the typically a family run business with decision at the founder level and not looking at expanding, I mean, you're good to be in that position.
Thank you so much. And one question to Mr. Amal Chitne is, what is the process of new product development and approval process, both domestic and export customer? Is it the same, yeah, different methodology you use, because almost 35% of your product is exported?
The basic process of development, both Indian and overseas customer follow is same, but I can make a difference that the rigor with which the systems are followed by overseas customer is much more than the Indian customer base. So you need to be really doing a very good contract review. That is my advice. And promise only what you can do and do not promise what you cannot do. So our company very routinely kind of does a contract review, and then we have a very long numerous meeting with our customer when the products are critical. And in that we are not afraid of asking for some deviations, because sometimes the dimensions are not achievable, or sometimes the tolerances are too tight, and it will call for a very high cost. So that is a to and fro what we do, and this happens mainly with the overseas customers, because once you accept something, then they expect you to really follow the print to the last digit. So that is the difference basically between a domestic part development and overseas part development. But my advice is actually says there are some good multinational companies which are there present in India also, and they probably follow, if not 100%, but say 70-80% of the development procedures or development practices which overseas customer base follow. So if you kind of aspire and then you become their supplier, then it's a good learning platform. So the main difference is the rigor, the adherence to the system. Otherwise, there are various standards actually which you have to take and follow. But in overseas, there is a rigor, and so you need to be really truthful and very open to the customer, what is possible and what is not possible.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Sanjay, just since you are in consulting business, just can you please tell us how MSME can leverage digital tools to reach to wider customer network, because they cannot spend that much amount. So how digital tool can be used to increase their marketing activity?
Right. So multiple digital platforms are right now available. You just mentioned about e-commerce. Why is it that e-commerce MSMEs and startups are more successful? They attract the more talent. The answer lies in digital, because when we have an internet framework, if you look into the science of the success behind MSMEs, the key problem lies in the scaling up. But when we have digital tools like internet and all these things, the scaling up issue directly goes away. It's very easy to scale up, and that is why we find large amount of fundings coming to startups and fintechs, for example, who are starting off with small and medium enterprises. Now, the digital channels that our manufacturing SMEs can directly use. One is internet. The other point which I wanted to mention was blockchain. Why? Because when it comes to MSMEs, somebody who is starting new, and there's a question around quality adherence, at least at the initial phases. With modern technologies like blockchain, which tries to solve the issues around transparency, that can be leveraged, and when it is scaled up to a certain level, to a large enterprise, the issues that we were discussing right now, when it goes to international market, what is the guarantee that we are following a certain how we are adhering to certain processes and methods, those can be solved directly by blockchain. That is one particular example which I want to take. Other examples have been taken in our earlier sessions today, like when we had the discussions around robotics and Industry 4.0. They are primary levers to reduce your cost. There are multiple levers, for example, faster cloudification or your IoT, etc. Which so these are the different things that any MSME can adopt in different phases, not at one go. Each one of them are complicated subjects, depending on the nature of the market that an MSME targets, and also the nature of the product that they go.
Thank you, and we have got a very good discussion with all the panelists. We can take 2-3 questions if anything is there from the audience. So, if no question is there, we can wrap up the sessions. And thank you audience for a patient hearing, and a lot of good inputs we have got from the fellow panelists, and it was a wonderful session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bera. A very knowledgeable last session, must say, and an appropriate one to conclude the conclave. The knowledge sessions, that is. May I request Mr. P.K. Wilson Purti to please come and give the mementos to the chair and to the panelists, please. The first memento to Mr. Sanjay Bera. To Mr. Amal Chitnis, please. Mr. Sanjay Guho-Thakurta. Mr. Chetan Ligade. Mr. Anthony Ravikumar. Mr. Sachin Shetty.
Yeah. Now I request Mr. Purti to present our memento to Ms. Malkani. Thank you, Ms. Malkani, for being with us and conducting the session, emceeing the whole day. Thank you so much.